Okay, we should be recording, and I'll turn it over to Dean, who will formally introduce Mr. Ferlo.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Pat, welcome to you. Patrick Ferlo has served as director of the UAlbany Performing Arts Center for the past 27 years. He is a UAlbany alumnus with a 1988 degree in theater and a concentration in design and technology. He also holds a certificate in arts administration from New York University, awarded in 1999. He resides in Ballston Spa, New York, where he gains his artistic outlet by designing shows for the school district each year. He's a proud husband and father of 2 adult daughters. Pat, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. So as Dean just mentioned, I'm Pat Ferlo. I'm the director of the Performing Arts Center. I became director back in 1995 when I was 29 years old, which is the age of my oldest daughter right now, which is a little, kind of strange for me. Graduated from the university with that degree in design, theatrical design and technology. So my work experience with the PAC actually goes back to 1985. Let me quick share my screen here so we have something. After earning my degree, I worked as technical director at Capitol Rep for 3 seasons before being offered a lecturer position to come back here. In 1993, we had that first child, and I realized that if I ever wanted to see her, that I should find a job with a more normal schedule. When the assistant manager of the Performing Arts Center position became available, I applied, and 2 years later, I was director of the Performing Arts Center, and that's how I've made my career. As part of my duties in the Performing Arts Center, I'm often given opportunities to give tours of the facility. That's kind of what I'm going to try to do today. I've conducted these tours many times over the years, but this is my first time doing it virtually, and we'll do it together. It'll be fun. The Performing Arts Center opened its doors on April 16th, 1969. It was the last building to be dedicated on the academic podium. It was meant to replace the aging Page Hall, which is now, on what's now called the downtown campus. When completed, it was hailed as a state-of-the-art facility without equal. A few photos. So this is the construction of the podium from December 1st, 1965. In the distance, you can see the biology building almost looking like it was completed, right? And the earth science building just starting to be constructed. The big hole over here to the right is the Performing Arts Center. Not quite looking like anything at this point. What I like about this photo is if you look at the bottom of it, you can see the forms that they use to create the canopy and the holes on the edge of the canopy. I just love this photo for that reason. The next photo that I have is for 3 months later, on March 21st, 1966. This photo is taken from the roof of the main library looking east. You can see the earth science and fine arts are well on their way. And the steel structure in the back is actually the framing for the Performing Arts Center. There's a lot of steel work in the Performing Arts Center. There's a lot of specialized, a lot of steel work in the whole podium, but there's a lot of steel work in the Performing Arts Center because it's a very specialized building. This is a photo of the welding being done in the main theater around 1968. This Albany Student Press article I like because it talks about the dedication the next day, but it mentions that the cost of the building when it was built and furnished was $5.5 million. I can't even imagine what a facility of this magnitude would cost to build today. Photo of the completed podium from around 1970 looks to me like an artist rendering of what the podium might look like, right? It's an actual photo, but it just looks so clean and crisp. Performing Arts Center is building with the dome at the top center. So this is the Performing Arts Center here. And finally, a photo of the Performing Arts Center from the water tower. What I like about this photo is that you can actually see the Empire State Plaza and the Alfred E. Smith, I believe, building in the background. But this is a photograph of the roof of the Performing Arts Center. So let's talk about what we do. The Performing Arts Center hosts about 200 public performances a year. It's home to the Department of Music and Theater, which accounts for about 75 of those performances. The rest are presented by various offices and departments at the university, along with a number of student association activities. The center is also host to off-campus rental clients from the region who hold their performances, recitals, conferences, and meetings in its spaces throughout the year, even through the summer. The Performing Arts Center also has hosted professional artists as part of its Prime Performances series since about the year 2000. In addition to the public performances, the PAC is also abuzz with activity in preparation for shows, music and theater rehearsals, scenery and costume builds, lighting hangs, all in addition to the academic classes associated with the music and theater programs. So all in all, it's a pretty busy place. All right, let's start your tour. The first of the performance venues is the main theater. The main theater seats 463. It is a large proscenium type theater. A proscenium theater is the most common type of theater that everyone's used to, right? Where generally the audience faces the actors and you're looking through some sort of picture frame. That picture frame is called the proscenium arch. In many older theaters, the arch was actually decorated to look like an ornate picture frame. The main theater's arch is a little bit more hard to see. Our proscenium is 48 feet wide and 20 feet tall, and the stage is 39 feet deep from the edge of the apron to the paint frame on the back wall. That paint frame on the back wall, you can take drops and flats and put it on the paint frame, and standing on the floor, you can raise and lower the scenery and actually paint it all by standing on the floor, so that the scenery moves up and down, but you don't have to climb ladders to do so. This is a really great training ground for theater technicians, just because of all of the technology that's possible. One of the benefits of a proscenium theater is not in its ability to show what's in the frame, but its ability to hide what's outside of the frame. So this is a photo taken backstage in the main theater during a technical rehearsal. You can see the many rows of drapery reused to hide things from audience members, like the rows of lights. From the audience, these draperies make things look crisp and clean, allowing the audience member to focus on the performer. All of these draperies are flown on a rigging apparatus called a counterweight system. I'm going to spend a little time just talking about the counterweight system because it's kind of a fun piece of magic. Our theater has 42 line sets that allow a single operator to lift over 2,000 pounds with very little effort. One of these battens that has the lights on it right now with cable and lighting units weighs over 800 pounds. This is a photo of the operator lines located stage right on our main stage. So if you each of these ropes is connected to an arbor, which is this piece that is connected to the pipes on stage through some pulleys. So these arbors are connected through pulleys to the pipes that hang overhead. When you load weight onto an arbor that is equal to the weight of the object you're wanting to fly, a single person can move objects with ease. The Performing Arts Center, like most buildings on campus, are four levels high, a basement and 3 floors. However, the main stage, in order to allow for this gridiron that is 65 feet above the stage, has an additional story built on top of the building. It's called the stage house. In fact, when you're visiting another school or complex and looking for the theater, look up. Just look for the building that looks like it has a big shoebox on the top. That's often the stage house of the theater. As you can see, the additional height allows us to store a great number of items out of view of the audience. The shoebox on top of the Performing Arts Center is a little difficult to see from the ground unless you look carefully from the biology side. The stage house makes the PAC the tallest building on the podium. Not that you can see that from, from many places. That gridiron that I was talking about is at the very top of the stage house. Each of these pipes is suspended by 5 lengths of 1/4-inch wire rope running through these pulleys up through a large multi-groove pulley called a head block, and then down to the weights on the arbor. I hope you enjoyed a little peek behind the curtain to see a little bit of the magic of theater. That's how we fly things in the main theater. Before we leave the main theater, we've now discussed it being a 5-story structure, but that's not exactly true. It's actually 6. Because underneath the stage is an orchestra pit and a trap room. So this orchestra pit is mechanical and travels 13 feet down to the sub-basement level to allow for a sizable orchestra for musicals. The stage itself is actually made up of 4x4 removable squares that can be removed, creating a hole to the room below, right? The trap room is probably 15 feet tall. This allows us to hide items in the spaces below. It allows for things like appearance traps where actors can appear out of nowhere. The main theater has hosted many exciting performances over the year. This is Royal Hunt of the Sun. It was the theater department's first main stage production back in 1969. The theater department was actually created at the very same time that the Performing Arts Center was built. So the theater department didn't exist. It was always part of the English department until they moved up here. This is a more recent production from 2008, Picasso at La Pas Agile. And you can see that things got a little bit more sophisticated as time went on. We have many cultural performances on the main stage, like San Jose Taiko back in 2018. The main is the best dance venue in the area. So we host a lot of dance in that space, like this photo of the Ellen Sinopoli Dance Company. I think the piece was called Breakout and was back in the early, maybe 2010, somewhere in that range. The music program has 6 major ensembles that perform on the main stage as well. They have an orchestra, a band, a chorale, the chamber singers, the jazz ensemble, and a percussion ensemble. So they use the main an awful lot, usually two performances a year, 2 performances a semester for those ensembles. And the main is the largest performance space on the Uptown campus, so it's used for ceremonies and it's used for commencement. Okay, up next is the Arena Theater. Normally, it's interesting because we would walk, right? We would be walking from the main to the arena, and that would take some time. I'm not sure how long this tour takes when we don't have to walk, but we'll see. The arena seats 196. The stage itself is a 24-foot circle, diameter circle. 196 seats in this little area is an awful lot. I like to say that the arena was reinvented in the 60s because the 60s were all about immersion for the audience, right? Everyone wanted to be a part of the action. Well, in an arena like this, the audience is never more than a few rows away from the action, right? This is all of 4 rows deep. And the audience on the other side, right? When you're watching the action on stage, the audience on the other side of the arena actually become part of the show. So you watch their reactions and you gauge your reactions on theirs, I suppose. Whenever we're doing a piece of theater, we're talking about telling a story, and that everyone has their part in telling the story. Well, a scene designer in the arena theater has a very limited ability to tell stories, right? Because we can't set up a full set here. right? Because people on this side can't look through the scenery and you know, see actors on the other side of it. So when we're telling a story in this space, the costumes and the props become very important. I'm very proud to have an arena theater. Many places don't have a brick and mortar arena theater anymore. Usually they'll build a black box, which you'll see in a few minutes, and set it up like an arena because it's more cost effective that way. But we actually have a brick and mortar arena theater, which is kind of fun. Remember these pillars for later, because these, there are very few places on the university campus that are based on circles, right? We're all based on squares, but these pillars will come into play again with another theater above it. Just to take a look at some things that have been in the arena. This is the Maids from 1987. So this was a show where we hung a circular piece of fabric called bobinette and painted it for the show, and people watched the entire show through the bobinette. So when you light it from the outside, it looks more solid. If you light it from the inside, you can actually see what's going on. This is a production of the Bacchae in 1992. We've brought in professionals, and we've used this space a couple times for professionals, including this photo, which was a show called Tense Vagina, which we're always kind of on the cutting edge of, well, what can we show people? But this is a great photo because it shows that in an audience, I'm sitting in the audience here and I'm looking across, watching the action, and the audience members on the other side are actually part of the action. And then lastly, this is from a show called Stop Kiss. And I just like it because it's kind of a square in the circle instead of circle in the square. Get it? See what I did there? Okay, on to our next venue. This is the Studio Theater. This is a small proscenium theater in the basement, seats 150. It's a proscenium theater in that there is an arch, and so the arch is kind of hard to see and more contemporary, but audience is still facing the actor, but it's a more intimate space, right? It's not quite the grand main theater. This is 29 feet wide and 20 feet deep, this stage. Host to one or two theater performances a year, and a lot of the theater classes take place in this theater. It's very interesting to the tech people to actually have a theater to refer to when they're teaching class, right? So they actually have the class in the studio. And no matter where you are, the designs for these shows are always interesting to me. And this is one of them from 2007. This is Letters to a Student Revolutionary, which happened in the studio. Next up, we've been showing, so far all three of these venues were on the basement level of the Performing Arts Center. We talked about the main theater taking up all 4 floors and then having a floor on top and a floor below. The 2 theaters that we just saw, the arena and the studio, are on the basement and first floor. And then right above them, there are 2 other theaters. And next is the lab. The lab theater is a black box theater. It's called either a black box or a flexible stage. Yet another theater type that we have under our roof here. A black box is the ultimate in opportunity for artistic outlet, right? So you can set this up in whatever style that you wish. Right now, this is set up for a production of 12th Night that actually is opening later this week on Thursday the 31st. but it's set up in a thrust configuration, which means that the audience is sitting on three sides. This theater is really just a 40-foot by 50-foot black box in which you can create theater. It is, one of the favorite places to do theater because you can, your artistic freedom can run wild. For management considerations, it's not the best theater because not only do we have to pay to set up scenery and things like that, we have to pay for, the theater itself to be set up, usually seating platforms and chairs and things like that. And when we're selling tickets, seat A101 is not always in the same place anymore, right? So now this is a completely different configuration. We have to figure out exactly how we're going to sell tickets to it. The room says that it will seat 180, but I've not seen us use quite much more than 140 in this room. It's interesting because we'll take a look at some of the shows that have happened in here. So this is a 1983 production of Getting Out, where it's set in both a prison and a studio apartment. So the upper level of the lab theater was actually used as a performance area as part of the prison. I like that. I just like this idea of being able to incorporate the theater into a design. This is a production of Dangerous Liaisons in 1993. Production of Cabaret, a very avant-garde production of Cabaret in 2011. And a production of Lonely Planet, which is from 2006. I just love the detail in what we do in the theater department here. It's, we're able to create an awful lot of really, really nice looking sets that help to tell that story. As we leave the lab, we're gonna pause in the Footerer Lounge. The lounge is named for Agnes Footerer, who attended the Albany State College from 1912 to 1916, and then taught in the English department until 1959. In 1953, Agnes was instrumental in creating a program in drama at the school, one of only 3 in the nation at that time. She laid the groundwork for academic programs in theater for the university, and for her dedication and innovation, she gets a lounge named for her. We see this lounge used for receptions after performances. We also have a number of ceremonies that happen in the lounge. The lounge is one of those places on K. It's a 30-foot by 80-foot lounge, which is not huge, but it's big enough to house a lot of festive events. Lastly, we have our last performance space, which is the recital hall. The recital hall seats 235, I believe, 197 downstairs and 45 upstairs in the boxes. This again is a piece of architecture on campus that is not based on a square or rectangle, but based on circles. Everything in here is a circle, right? And those pillars that I said to remember, these are the very same pillars that run from all the way up from the basement and through this theater and hold up the roof. So the center of the arena stage is actually down in this area. The type of theater this is it's actually a proscenium theater of sorts, in that the actors are facing the audiences, but it's really what they call a music box in New York. So that kind of looks like a little a little music box, so a little jewel box, and the jewel is the chandelier at the center. When I got here in '93, this ceiling, it was very difficult to replace the lights in the ceiling, and it was impossible to replace the lights in the chandelier because the chandelier doesn't lower. So it's in the middle of seats. And the director at that time, who was Alton McLeod, said that I was only to turn on that chandelier for the president. So the chandelier used to be 120 10-watt light bulbs until 2012, when we did a bit of a project. We scaffolded the entire theater. We replaced the lights in each of the pies with a theatrical unit. And then we replaced all the lights in the chandelier with LEDs. So instead of the 120 LEDs that the chandelier used to, the 120 light bulbs that the chandelier used to have, now it has over 10,000 LEDs. At the same time, we actually cleaned the chandelier. It hadn't been cleaned since the building opened. So it looks pretty spectacular now that that's been done. And now we have a very striking ceiling in the recital hall that is actually very versatile as well, right? Because we can control each one of those pieces of pie in any color we wish. I think that's kind of cool. In the recital hall, obviously it's built for chamber music and piano recitals, things like that. So you can see a bunch of chamber music. This is an opera project, right? The students in the music department use it often. We've also used it for innovative small theater pieces like, professional musicians, right? The Prime Performances series, we try to present things that fill in the holes that the Department of Theater Music don't do. So this Sybarite 5 was actually classical music with video above them. We try to bring in things that you won't necessarily see coming out of the department. This is a piece called The Other Mozart, which was a theater piece that we presented. And that dress is just fabulous. Love that. It's also home to many of our the Creative Life series, right? We have a Creative Life Conversation series, which is a collaboration between the Art Museum, the Performing Arts Center, the Writers Institute, and WAMC. We find an artist and we interview them and talk about their process and talk about their life. What's it like to be an artist? We've interviewed a couple dozen artists at this point, like journalist Susan Orlean and choreographer Garth Fagan. And our next Creative Life conversation is coming up on April 30th with Sonia Manzano. And you might know her from her work of playing Maria on Sesame Street for a very long time. So other spaces in the building include a dance studio and a scene shop. The scene shop and the costume shop, which you'll see in a second, are manned by students. So it's very much an earn while you learn program, right? There's a faculty technical director and there's a staff scene shop supervisor. But past that, everyone else working in there is learning how to do it and earning minimum wage at the same time. So all of the scenery in the building is built by students under the direction of some faculty. It's a small amount of faculty members. We have a well-maintained costume shop as well. What I find interesting about the university is when I take a look at this this photo from the basement of the Performing Arts Center, is that there's an awful lot of interesting architecture here. And if I zoom in on this and keep zooming in, you end up seeing that you can see the fountain from the basement of the Performing Arts Center, which is just kind of neat to me. When I was going around taking photographs, I wanted to say, hey, isn't that cool? In 2016, the Performing Arts Center celebrated its 50th anniversary. And we offered a free performance of the Zukumu Dance Company, who brought much of the audience up on stage with them at the end of the evening. We ended that night wishing the Performing Arts Center another 50 years of exciting artistic opportunities for the university community. And I'm kind of hoping that that will be the case. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Performing Arts Center. And I'll happy to entertain some questions if there are any. Maybe that was too quick, but
Oh, I think that was great, Pat. I mean, my goodness, first of all, you can tell how old I am. I was working there a year before Performing Arts opened up. But I've never had such an in-depth look at performing arts and what goes on behind the scenes. I've been to several performances. I especially like we used to call it Oswego Theater in the Round. But Pat, it was fascinating. And I love those early pictures too. Thank you so much.
of course.
Who has questions out there, folks? Oh, we got plenty. Joan Savitt. Can you unmute Joan?
Did you allow to
Maybe
talk?
maybe she just wants us to. Oh, here we go.
Okay, yeah.
Aha. Okay.
There we are.
Hello,
Hi,
Joan.
Joan.
Hi. I remember climbing all around in the basement and all. There's an elevator, right? Does that make all of the spaces handicap accessible now?
All of the space, we have 4 elevators in the building, 5 if you include the orchestra pit. All of the spaces are accessible. They've been accessible since we opened. We do our best when we make changes to the building to make that even better. In fact, when we redid the seats in the main theater, we did not put seats in the back row of the main theater so that there would be more wheelchair seating back there. But yeah, we have actually the 2 largest passenger elevators on campus, which is good for us because we move large items up and down with them as well.
Let's see. Next one in the line of attendees is Dan Smith.
Okay, I opened them up.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Pat?
I can. How are you, Dan?
Okay, thanks. And thanks for a great presentation. I really liked seeing those spaces again. One of the things I remember years back, I don't know if Andy Lyons or someone who had taken me through said, the students had the ability to learn and practice, and they had sort of the most up-to-date technical equipment, including lighting boards and sound systems that would allow them to, for example, pick up anywhere on Broadway, even the small theaters and some of the larger theaters, and use their skills that they had been trained to use at Albany. Is that still the case?
It took us a little while. When I was a student, we got the opportunity to use one of the first computer lighting boards, and it was the computer lighting board that at that time they were using on a chorus line in Broadway, and they had just started using it at a chorus line, and we had gotten one of the first ones, and I was at that point. I was like, oh no, I was so used to this 10 scene preset board that was many levers, and it took some actual skill to operate, right? And we were so good at that, and now I didn't want to get to the point where all we were doing is pressing a button. Well, it didn't quite come down to that, because obviously we had to program it, and we learned a whole lot of different things. But at this point, we try to keep up with the times, right? So every few years we're buying new technology. And right now we have, we're probably one step behind Broadway at this point, but we have a project in the works in the next 5 years to upgrade all of our electrical systems as well. So we should be seeing state of the art again within the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave Wagner.
It should be good to go with unmuting.
Hey, Dave.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Yes. My mouse got lost. That was a very good presentation, Pat. I'm actually quite familiar with the Performing Arts Center. I've not been around nearly as long as Dean, but I've been around since 1985. But I've been much more involved with the music program than with the theater program. I sang with the University Chorale for many years, and I've been singing with Albany Pro Music since 1993. And we rehearse in the rehearsal hall, the choral rehearsal hall there. And I was surprised you didn't mention either of the orchestral or the choral rehearsal halls, which are fairly large spaces in there. They're not ideal, but they're pretty decent spaces for that sort of thing. And I do agree that in recent years I've been getting around with a scooter, though I just had my knee replaced and I can get around more easily now. The handicap space for the late 60s was really quite, not handicap space, but handicapped accessibility was quite a bit better. I do find it kind of roundabout to get a lot of places still at this point, but that's not really the concern. The one concern that I have, and I've had almost from the very beginning, and it's nothing that can be fixed, is that while the Performing Arts Center is located in a place that makes it really convenient for people on campus, it is deathly impossible for anybody who is not already on campus. It takes forever to even find where the thing is, let alone to get to the right theater or recital hall or whatever. I wish there was some way to fix that, but there doesn't appear to be any way of doing that. The one other comment I wanted to make, I served for many years on the Policy and Planning Council for the University Senate. And we dealt with things having to do with in what order do the buildings get renovated. And not only is the Performing Arts Center the last one to be completed, it is the last one to actually be expected to be updated. And while there are a lot of really very nice things about the way this thing is designed and things that you're able to do in that a lot of performance spaces you're not able to do, I'm really disappointed that it's going to be the last one to be renovated. Do you have any thoughts about what you would like to see if and when that renovation finally occurs?
Well, let me address a couple things that you said.
Okay.
When I first got here, I found out that I actually went out on the podium, stood in front of the Performing Arts Center and asked people that walked by, hey, can you tell me where the Performing Arts Center is? Most people at that point did not know that we had a Performing Arts Center.
Yep.
And I was standing in front of it, right? I would say that maybe 30% of the people that came by, I believe that was the number, could actually tell me that we had one. Some of them didn't know where it was, and I was right there. In the late 90s, in an effort to make us look a little different, I was the one that kind of decided that we were going to put blue light on the outside of the building. Actually, it was going to be purple light, but we couldn't find the glass rondelles in purple, so we went with blue light. So in the late 90s, I added those around the outside of the building. So we light up the building in blue whenever we're having a public performance. So that was something, right? You can't necessarily see that blue light from the road, but at least once you got there, you go, oh, I'll go to that building. And then the banners, right? The banners that are on the outside of the building were added a few years later. They were added in front of the Art Museum and in front of the Performing Arts Center, which at least helped us to stand out once you got onto the campus. Yeah, having parking pretty far from the Performing Arts Center and not being able to see it from the road is not a great thing. you know, they built it and they said it's going to be central to the mission of the university, and said it's really important, so it's in the center. We get deliveries all the time, right? So we have to go out to the tunnel toward chemistry, take a left, and walk a football field away for anything that we need delivered.
I've
Steel,
taken that route many times myself.
right? Steel and lumber and you name it, all has to come in a football field away. So we've gotten very good at carting things from afar. There are two things that when we do the gut renovation, which I will not be around for. Sadly, the last estimate that I heard was 2039.
Yes, that's the latest guess.
I'm about 6 years away from retirement. So over the years, realizing that they weren't going to gut renovate this place, they couldn't figure out how to do it, right? So they're kind of putting it off and going, that's going to be a nightmare when it happens. They've given me a bunch of money, right? I've seen about $5 million since we did that. I was on that master planning committee where we decided that, you know, in 2039, we were going to do that gut renovation. Since that time, I've received about $5 million of funding to do upgrades, right? So I saw a lot of Kathy Lowry and John Giarrusso and whatever kind of saying, we realize that you're not going to get these improvements, so we have to give them something. So we've spent a lot of time upgrading ourselves as much as we can. For the gut renovation, the things that I'm sorely missing are HVAC control, right? At this point, I had dancers in this weekend and the theater was too cold.
Yeah, yes.
There's nothing I can do about that. I called over and we've made whatever, and if it's too warm in one side, one place and too cold, I just don't have any control over HVAC, which has always been a problem. And sound deadening. I missed the paragraph in here where I was going to say, if I say this carefully, it sounds impressive. No other facility in the Northeast can offer the variety of rehearsal and performance spaces under one roof. Under one roof is very important to that statement. But under one roof means that we're really in close proximity. And it's very difficult to use both of these theaters at the same time, especially when you have noise bleed through, mostly through the HVAC system. So once we fix HVAC in this building, we'll be in better shape. That's what I'm looking forward to the most, that I'll never see. But the next guy.
Yes. One other thing with respect to when the gut renovation finally occurs, as you may be aware, when they recently renovated what had been called the business building, I forgot what they're calling it now. All the departments that were in that building had to move out and had to be relocated elsewhere on campus for a period of at least a couple of years. And if you're doing that with the Performing Arts Center, then you guys are completely shut down for a period of at least a couple of years. And it really makes it hard on producing any kind of show or concert on anybody who has anything to do with the Performing Arts Center. So it's an almost impossible kind of problem to try to deal with.
Any discussions of, because there is no swing space for the Performing Arts Center, any discussions of a gut renovation for this building have been doing a north side and then doing a south side.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think that's the only way we're ever going to do it.
Yep. Well, I appreciate what was a very good presentation. I wasn't familiar with a couple of the spaces too much, like the lab theater, but I've been in and attended concerts and performances in almost all of those spaces, and I've walked around through all of them to get to the main stage for university chorale concerts, and been in the orchestra pit. So I'm actually pretty familiar with most of what you showed us.
That's great.
Thank you.
Of course.
Actually, Pat, I guess it's a three-part question.
Okay.
First, do you have any idea what your total annual attendance is, like for all your events combined?
I think it's somewhere in the 55,000 range.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, actually. Yeah. And I guess the next question is, what's your budget, every annual budget, and how much of that is from the university versus like income from ticket sales or rentals or, you know, other sources? I'm just trying to get a sense of how big your operation, your operation sounds pretty big, but
It's actually pretty small.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you remember that the Performing Arts Center itself is not the Department of Theater and Music.
Okay.
Right? So we're the building, and we house all this stuff, but we don't necessarily, we don't deal with the faculty in that department or whatever. What I did back in '95, and it was the smartest thing I ever did until the pandemic. It was the smartest thing I ever did. I said, I don't want any S&E money. I don't want any money from the college, because we report to the College of Arts and Sciences, right?
Okay.
But most of what we do is for a lot of people outside the college. So it doesn't make sense for the college to support everyone. So I said, don't give me any money. Said, give me money for the people, which is probably somewhere in the range of $300,000, let's say. So they supply me with the personnel, and then I pay for everything else.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I make about $120,000 on rentals per year. That's that's ballpark figure. And I take all of that money and I buy all of the student labor that I need. I buy all the artists contracts that I need, all the equipment, and everything I need comes out of that money. So I run it out of an IFR. Any ticket money that we make, we either divvy it out to the department that earned it, or we take ours and put it right back into the program. So it's not like we have an awful lot of money to work with, but we have exactly the amount of money that we need because we make it ourselves.
Yeah, good. And I guess another question too, you regarding the student presentations, which I guess are through the theater department, you were saying, do the students not only do the obviously the acting, but they also responsible for like the set and the costumes and the lighting, all the technical parts of the production, or and do they do it alone, or do your staff kind of provide assistance and consultation?
Again, the theater department, if we're talking about that, remember the music is just kind of you're playing music, and we're their tech. So the Performing Arts Center does all the tech for music, but the theater people are trying to learn tech, right? Right. So everything they do is run by students. Okay, there are 2 faculty members above. Well, it depends. 2 faculty members above scenery and lighting, and then another faculty member in charge of the costume people. So everyone under that, we're paying minimum wage, but they're learning at the same time as they're earning. So they get their snack money at the same time.
Yeah, that's good.
That they're learning how to do it.
It's like a paid internship or apprenticeship or something like that. Yeah, that's good.
I tell people all the time, high school students, when you're looking for a job at a university, go to the Performing Arts Center, because I also hire students to run those events, because I can't hire the theater students to do it because they're too busy. So I hire bio majors, right, and come and teach them how to manage audiences or run light boards or things like that. So I hire 12 students a year to help with our events, and this is much better than slinging hash on a meal. So
yeah, good. Actually, I think my daughter got her degree, I think, trying to think when she got her, probably in the I don't know, 1990s or early 2000s, and she had a part-time job with you guys. I think you were and you're doing like a film, you're having like a film series back then. I think, and she was helping be as a student intern to help with getting all that done too. So
that's great.
Yeah, she appreciated that part-time job actually back then. Yeah.
The joy of it is that when you work at a job like that, one night you're going to see a presentation on life on Mars, and the next night you're going to see a great dance company, and then it's just a really wonderful opportunity.
Okay, Dean, do you see any more questions? I don't think I do.
No, I don't.
All right, well, it is approaching 2:30 too, so I think we probably should bring it to a close. I do want to thank Pat for a very interesting and, in my case, educational presentation. I have to admit, I didn't know there was that much involved and how, with the art and how many different theaters and, arenas you had. It's a pretty impressive facility, definitely.
Indeed, I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. Dean, anything you want to add?
I'm fascinated. I learned so much, and the only thing I mean, I've been to performances, and of course, being in the registrar's office, we had the 2 classrooms that we used, but the behind the scenes and all the look at all the different structures of the design and the early pictures, it was fascinating. I really very much appreciate, and I think the folks that tuned in also did. So thank you.
Of
Yeah,
course.
very good.
Thank you so much.
And before we end, I just wanted to publicize our next webinar is in 2 weeks, April 11th. And our speaker is going to be Professor Eloise Briere, who is from the French Studies program. And she's going to be, her title of her talk is Lucie Coustière, a Pioneer. Coustière was, I think, an early 20th century French painter and writer, and also a feminist. And Professor Briere's work studying her has actually been the center of a number of our Three Voices small grants programs. We've helped fund some of her work in this area. So I hope all of you are able to attend and listen to what Eloise has to say about this, I think, important early 20th century French female writer and painter. So with that, I think I'll call it a day. Stay warm, everyone. It feels like January or February out there today.
Sure does.
Not late March, early April, but in any case, hopefully it'll be warmer and nicer on April 11th when we get together again. All right, very good. Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.